something that I say along the way will touch you. I know it. Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
I hope this week you have been deeply involved in crafting your meaningful life. Life is short, and I think of what eternity looks like in this little bit of time that we have here. And that's why every single day matters. Every single day that we're bringing our very best, and we're really focused on what does that mean to me in my life to craft a meaningful life. To each and every day be focused on, I'm going to bring my very best self. And when I do that, I can help others, lift them to their very best selves. That's what I think about when I select the guests on my topics and what we're going to do. And this week, I couldn't wait to have Michelle on. I have my guest today is Michelle Scharf, and I'll tell you, when I bring her on, I'll tell you exactly how I came to have her on here and why I'm so excited to have her speak to you today. So thank you for being with us. Michelle, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be on your podcast.
Because I was on your podcast. Yeah. So Michelle has this beautiful podcast on our local KSL TV radio. They have a whole podcast station that is like just gangbusters around the world, Michelle. That podcast station is huge. And you and another woman have a podcast called Relentlessly Resilient. And I think you know what that means to me, to be resilient. So let's start there about your podcast and how you came to do that.
So, the podcast was a passion project of mine. It started for me kind of before podcasts actually even really started to be quite a thing. In 2010, I started working in Utah politics, and I was traveling around the state. And I was meeting all of these people that were, either delegates or people coming out to meet the candidates. And I was getting to know these people. And I think if I were to have a superpower, it's that people feel a connection and they trust me to tell me some of their hardest things that they've accomplished in life. And I would hear story after story after story of really hard things. Some of them are traumas. Some of them are just hard life lessons. Some of them are, anything from a house burning down to the loss of a child to a loss of a spouse, just a lot of stories of loss. And I didn't know it at the time, but I worked in politics from 2010 to until 2020. And I had all of these stories in my heart and all of these stories that I carried with me. And these people, of course, became friends. We friended each other on Facebook. We stayed in touch. Some of them have had terrible health issues, all kinds of stuff. And my husband was diagnosed with cancer in 2016.
Okay.
And when that happened, those stories carried me. And I kept thinking, I know an awful lot of people that have been through so many hard things. And this is going to be my hardest thing so far in this life.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be able to survive it and I'm going to be able to make it. And I carried those stories with me. So in 2019 is when I approached KSL with this idea for a podcast. And I said, I don't know if anyone is going to be open to sharing their stories publicly, but this is what I'm thinking. I've carried these stories with me. These stories were meaningful to me. These stories helped change me as a person. I learned to be kinder, more patient. My husband's cancer taught me that there are things that happen sometimes. Like, for instance, I was driving down the freeway and I accidentally cut off a car. And because I was on the phone trying to get insurance coverage for a pain pump for my husband, and they didn't want to cover it. And, I was having to manage this in between my job and getting to work on time and squeezing in all of these calls between doctors and insurance companies. while I'm trying to work and take care
Yeah.
of a family. And it was just a lot. And I felt so bad for cutting that person off and realized that I was distracted and shouldn't have been having that call while I was driving. But I also started to think about times that people cut me off and how angry I would be, or I would yell at them, or, flip them a bird or whatever. And I started to realize we really don't have any idea of what other people are struggling with. And so we don't really give a lot of license or room or space for people because we just see the offense to us and with the lens of what we're struggling with. So the concept for me through that process was, what if we started sharing these stories? We don't talk about a lot of trauma in American culture. We focus on fame, notoriety, money, wealth, all of these things that are really, for the most part, a lot of people are never going to achieve, right? But if we could start focusing on being kind and giving space to one another, because we're all dealing with a lot of hard, I just felt like it could
Mhm.
be, in a small way, change the world, you
I
know?
love that concept. It is something that I have grown into over my life. I didn't feel, I was like you, I was very reactionary to things.
Hmm.
And now I've just learned this sense of grace for people. And it started by offering myself grace. When I made a mistake,
Yeah.
rather than beating myself up, to say, were you doing your best? Were you? I'm like, yeah, I was. Well, then give yourself some
Yeah.
grace. And when I was able to do that for me, then I was able to do that for other people on the road or anywhere. Like just starting this podcast today, we had a little bit of, upload time and moving around. Drew and I, my producer, we were calm as cucumbers because we've been late. And
Yeah.
I've had struggles with my equipment, and I've had
Right.
guests that were waiting. So it was like a natural flow. I could offer you grace.
Which was so nice because I was like, oh my goodness, we actually had to reschedule this once, and I'm trying to get on, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was going to have to download an app and all of
Yeah.
these things. And so I was just waiting to click a button and hop on, and then I realized, oh, I should have done this 10 minutes ago. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
But
No worries.
we live and learn. And the great thing is that you were so calm. It did made me realize, okay, this isn't a
Yeah.
rush. It's okay. It's all going to work out, and I could start to lower my energy and not be so upset that I wasn't arriving perfectly on
All
time.
right, so let's do this together, including my listeners. Let's just gonna release some of
Yeah.
that. Ready? Take a breath in. It is amazing to me what just that simple action does. And when I'm not
Right?
even aware that I need it, if I hear myself go, I'm like, whoa, whoa, what were you releasing? And then I stop and do it again on purpose because sometimes we
Yeah.
just hold this and it doesn't allow us to do what you do so well and what you teach people about. Is this resilience? Resilience does not happen in the stress. Resilience
Yeah.
happens in the calm. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, um, it's interesting you bring up breath because during grief, the process of grief, I noticed there was a lot of sighing that I would do. So I would be with my boss at lunch, or he would hear me in my office and he'd say, "What are you doing?" And I was sighing a lot. It was like, you know, and it wasn't conscious, but over time, because he was pointing it out, it became very conscious for me. And I started going, okay, what is that? And I realized and I recognized it. I'm like, oh, that's grief. And I'm just feeling a little sad. I'm feeling a little I miss you. I'm feeling a little I love you to my husband that I can't tell him that right now. And it's just and some of it is just like at lunch, my husband and I would have a phone call and just a quick check-in and an I love you. So I think it happened a lot at lunch because I was missing that call. And it's great because it's part of awareness, which is what I love to teach and talk about, as well as resilience, is becoming aware of the subconscious drivers that we're doing without thinking, and creating consciousness with them. Because some of those unconscious drivers, in fact, I was just talking to a friend earlier today, and she was talking about how she talks to herself, and she's starting to hear how she talks to herself. And I said, isn't that great? Because now that you know you're saying these negative things to yourself, you can ask yourself, where is this coming from? And make a new choice. And when you say those things, you can now replace it. And when you get really good at replacing that conversation, your world is going to open up, right? Because you're going to take that subconscious mind that is literally driving us. It is the driver, and you're bringing your consciousness to that subconscious level, and then you actually become the driver consciously, right? Instead of focusing on the subconscious mind being the driver, you become the driver, and you get to create the things that you actually want to create in the world.
Instead of this brainstem back here making the decisions, you can use your cerebral cortex and think through an issue and a problem and to solution. But when we are only reacting, we've got the flight or fight guy back here that's just driving a big bus.
Yeah. I've thought about this a lot. I wish in schools, instead of focusing on a lot of things that we focus on, we would actually focus on mindfulness and awareness training, because it would open up the learning in an entire different way. And I think that it's probably the biggest thing missing from our curriculum today.
Totally agree. If we were teaching that, our teenage suicide rate would not have gone up 71% in the last 10 years.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. We seem to think, well, let's just let kids grow up as they will, and then we'll come back and try and fix them when they're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Do you know what I mean? And to be help with that in the school system, I think is a great step forward. Michelle.
Yeah, I agree.
So I was on your podcast, and then I was doing my little Facebook, like what's happening in the world. And I saw your post and I just stopped. And I went, what was that? And I went back and I was like, she just completed the Jay Shetty life course training, and she's going to be a life teacher. Is that what's happening here? And then I read more and I read more. And I was like, yeah, that's what's happening. So I just lit up. I was so excited. And this is why. Because I am so intrigued at people, particularly women, who are in a certain genre for a certain number of years and doing something like you. Now you've been in your podcast and you feel pretty comfortable there. All of a sudden, something speaks to you. And you like, I think I'm going to go this direction. I feel called to it. Now, a lot of people think that, but then they don't take the next step, which is, so I'm going to sign up, and then they sign up, but they don't complete. You did all those steps, and then you completed, and now you're going to start a whole new career. Now, you're not my age, but you're not a spring chicken either. So
I'm not a spring. I'm 54.
See? And so
I'm 54 years old.
I tell you, that's the last statement in my book, since you've just started reading my book, is that I want everyone to know is that it's never too late. And nothing is impossible. So I want you to talk to me and my listeners about that whole process of like, and then why you chose Jay Shetty, because he's one of my heroes. I listen to his podcast all the time. I'm like, who else could you read this like? That could be Jay Shetty, So just spill the beans. Give us it all.
So it really started 30 years ago. And so the truth of the story is I've been on this journey a very, very, very long time.
Okay.
It started a long time ago, and it's been a long journey. So I signed up with Jay in March of 2021 to do this school. It was one of his first classes, and it was phenomenal. Instructors from all over the world. One of my instructors when I first signed up was from Dubai, and she was amazing. I learned so much from her. But as I was going through the manuals, the modules, I was being triggered and I was having a lot of grief come up, and I wasn't able to actually focus in the way that I wanted to focus and complete the program. And then a whole bunch of other things happened. I had a son that had an accident. He's been a year and a half in recovery, living in my house. There's just been a lot of other things that happened to bring up other layers of grief, right? So my son got in a motorcycle. He was on a motorcycle. A car hit him turning left, and he could have been killed, but his entire left side of his body was broken and damaged. Um, but it happened on my husband's birthday, because like trauma can never just be easy around our house. We've got to like load it as much as we can. So I thought I was going to lose my son on my husband's birthday a couple years after I lost my husband. So that kind of took me back again, right? And so I called the school and I said, I know that you have 6 months to complete the program. I really, look, all of this life happened. I really want to complete the program. I'm willing to pay whatever I need to pay, but I'm committed and I'm going to do it. And they said, we're going to let you come in. You have until this date to complete it. And, and after that date, you'll have to pay. And it was a lot of money, like a month. And so I got in there and I just focused on the modules, focused on everything that I needed to get done to get this program done. And today, ironically, our graduation class was today.
Oh,
it was this morning.
What a wonderful way to celebrate. Congratulations. That's wonderful, Michelle. That's wonderful.
So I'm so glad to be spending my afternoon of my graduation day here on a podcast talking about the very thing that my heart has been telling me to do for 30 years. And I have just not followed that. I have followed it in different ways. And the truth of the matter is I'm doing it in my timing and in my way. And I have such a rich well of experience to take with me to serve other people who are so ready to become aware of what is stopping them from living their very best life. And I cannot wait to be a part of it with them.
Oh, that just leads me to the next question that I wanted to ask, which is, when you think of this course of a life coach that you just finished, what is there one thing that you could pick out that really struck you that you can't wait to share with others, that you feel was so profound that it's just bubbling up inside of me? What's the one piece that is just there for you with Jay's course?
So I think this is true in most all certified coaching courses. Not all coaching courses are certified,
right?
But those that are certified through a foundation, the underpinning, the core underpinning, is that we are whole, complete, and resourceful. I don't actually have the answers. People are not paying me. If they hire me, part of my job is to inform them, I don't have the answers for you. You have all the answers. My job is to get curious enough to ask great enough questions that inspire you to have that reflective moment to create your own aha, I got it, right? It's hard for us to process ourselves. It's hard for us to figure it all out. That's why we hire therapists. It's why we hire a life coach. It's why we have coaches in our businesses or in sports teams, right? Like, we want to have the very best drawn out of us. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy. So I would say, even though it's not unique to the Jay Shetty course, what is bubbling over in me is to inspire others to get to their answers, to find the answers.
I love that.
Like, I can't wait to be part of the process where people create the aha moment and they get it and they reach for it. And then they start building the smart steps, the goals to take to get there,
That is
which you know
perfect.
all about.
I'll tell you what, there isn't anything that you could have said that I thought was more profound. There's a lot of ways to go about this and a lot of things to think, but when you can actually teach people and have them understand that every answer they ever wanted to know, need to know in this life is already inside of them. Now,
Yes.
sometimes, on my podcast, I know I don't have all the answers, so I don't want anybody listens to find all the answers. But there might be something that is said here that prompts people to think, what do I think about that? And to have those own reflective moments. Yeah, that is a gift that you have, Michelle, and you're going to be able to really lift a lot of people with that.
Yeah, and I really do feel like it's a gift I have, and it's a belief I've had for a long time. I know that my greatest answers were had in me vocalizing to a therapist or me working with my own life coaches. And I've had several life coaches over the years. So I do believe in that process, right? Like, and I'm not someone that's like, hey, I've got all the answers and I haven't done any of my own work. So let me come help you find. No, I have put in the time, I have put in the work, and I still do.
Right.
I still have a life coach. I'm not perfect by any means. I have my own things that I still work on today. I was reading your book earlier. I was reading parts of your resiliency and also parts of you when you took on taking on your weight and getting to the gym, right? And I laughed at myself because I'm like, yeah, I needed a kick in the butt about this today. I'm like, it's all about and I know it too, right? Like I know what I need to do. It's all about those smart steps. It's the real magic in life doesn't happen in the big things we do or like the big efforts we make. The big efforts usually don't create the end goal. It's the very small steps and consistent energy towards something that creates this achieving.
Yeah. Wow.
So I loved what I read in your book. I mean, your book, I love reading everything about it. And I had you on my podcast and I'm like, you are you exemplify resilience in your own life.
Thank you. I was just as you were talking about in the book when I talk about getting to the gym and making those promises to myself and commitments. And you said, boy, I needed this kick in the butt. I want to stop you right there. You don't need a kick in the butt.
Right.
What you need is that word again, grace.
Right, grace.
You need to give yourself grace that you've been doing your very best at that moment in time. Yeah. And maybe it wasn't what you envisioned as your best, but it was your best. And give yourself grace. Yeah. And now as you move into this next phase, grace to accept all that's going to flow to you and the new energies and the positiveness. But so many times we kick ourselves in the butt on past failures rather than just giving grace and saying, well, you made it, didn't you? Aren't you here today? I mean, seriously.
And I don't mean a kick in the butt like a shaming or like whatever. It was just that the funny thing about it was earlier in the day before reading that, I had said, oh, wow, I was doing so good and getting up every morning and doing my yoga. And I've been really struggling this last couple weeks as I've finished up the program and I've done there's just been a lot going on. There's been another program, which is their business launch pad that you do while you're waiting to know if you've been certified. And that has been happening in the morning. It kind of unwhacked my balance of my routine. And I was reading what you wrote about that. And I thought, oh, you know what? My routine changed and I didn't allow for the change of my routine, how it was going to impact the routine that I had. Right?
I love that.
And I didn't take a conscious accounting of that. But when I was reading what you wrote, I was like, yeah, I didn't plan for it. And because I didn't plan for it, that's why this happened. And now this is a reminder to make a new plan,
Exactly.
right?
And a new
Yeah.
promise
So,
and a new step into even more. Because that's one thing I know about you, Michelle, is that you like getting certified at age 54 to be a life coach from Jay Shetty, one of the most difficult ones to choose because it's so rigorous. And
yeah.
that you like have this ability to flow and
Hmm.
what's next. And one of the great gifts that I know you're going to be offering your clients is the ability to flow and let go of what's not working and keep
Yeah.
what does. And let's flow to the next step. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's been a theme my whole life. It's like, I didn't really intend to leave my brand new birthing practice. I had just got 3 babies born. I was really excited about it. I felt like it was my calling. But then when I went into the political thing and I saw how good I could be at
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
else that came so easy, I thought, wow, well, this is just so easy. And now I get my nights back. Like I'm going to get paid a regular paycheck and I don't have to be up for 4 nights in a row. This is going to be easier
Mm.
on my family. And so I left something that I love because I also found that I love the intellectual stimulation in a different way. It was just different, right? And and I think that that's the great thing about me is that I am not afraid to make changes, even if they
Ah,
seem like at the time my husband was like, I like the schedule better, but you've really spent a lot of years in training and education. And do you really think you can do this? And I'm like, I am doing it. What are you
yeah.
talking about? I already am doing it. So all of those experiences are great because they're going to help me be able to relate to a wide variety of
Yeah.
people as I work all over the world. Most likely I have clients in Virginia, Arizona.
I don't have any international clients. I have quite a few international listeners on my podcast. And some of my clients are in Utah, but I have a lot in California that just are looking for, well, this is what I've learned about life coach. They think,
Yeah, I want to hear
okay,
it.
they think they've come to be coached.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we never talk about what they think they've come for. I'm just thinking about this one wonderful, delightful woman that I have in California. And she chose me because I also have a business background. And so
Yeah.
building business, and she wanted life coaching in really more the business arena. So we started down that road. And then I just kept coming back to these other things that were coming through of what was in her way, and that had nothing to do with needing to know how to run a balance sheet. But it had to do with becoming aware of what was driving her actions and her emotions. And at the end of each session, she'd say, well, we didn't really talk about this. And I go, nope, not yet. And by the time we
Yeah.
finished our series, she said, I don't need coaching on that. I already have that information inside of me. But I just
Yeah.
had to see it and come clear to it.
Yeah.
And I love that piece of the coaching is that they come thinking, coach me how to live. I'm like, okay. But and I don't tell them that they're wrong. I just say, well, let's start here. We'll walk this way, and if that works for you.
Well, and that's the magic of coaching, right? It's like, okay, so what's your goal? So we start, they have a goal, whatever
Yeah.
that goal they see it being. And then as we start working through that goal, we might discover, is that goal, like we want to stay on that goal, that's fine. But now I'm hearing you talk about these things. Do
Yeah.
you want to go down this life and go down this line and spend our time on these things? So we go down that path. And then sometimes we'll discover, and I just had a client who came to me and she is going through some massive life changes. She came to me because she had a fear of being alone in the world. And what we discovered is that as we've been going through the process, her confidence is rising. She has less worry about that. And now she's rethinking a new goal. So when she starts with me next week, she may come to me with a different goal, right? So it's coaching's
Yeah.
flexible. We want to be flexible. But usually it's the goal that people think that they're stuck on, but actually the thing that is holding them back usually isn't directly related to that original goal. Like if you only focused on that, you don't really solve the what's going on, right?
Right.
Because it's that subconscious driver that's doing the
Absolutely.
driving.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. As we
Yeah.
wind down, Michelle, we've talked about going through these different phases of life and having the courage and the resilience to step into them. We've talked about what you're excited to share with your clients and a new direction for them and discovering just what's inside of them. My last question to you is this. What do you want out of this? Where do you
What
see
do
this?
one out of coaching?
Yeah, where do you see that this is going to be fulfilling for you? Where will it take Michelle from point A to B? What are your motivations and where do you want to be?
That is an amazing question. And I don't know that I have an actual answer for it, which sounds so counterintuitive, but I will tell you this. In my heart, so when I lost my husband, John, at first he didn't want me to post about it on social media. And then it became just difficult because I was involved in politics. There were a lot of people that were hearing about it, a lot of phone calls. And like I said to you before, managing all of the doctor appointments, visits, insurance company billing, and my job was a lot. And so between my family and his family and friends, we finally decided to come clean and just come out on Facebook. And I would update with everything that I could on Facebook publicly and then privately to just the family members in a group chat. And that is the way I managed it. Well, in having done that, I discovered a few things. I may be terrible at grammar when I'm not paying attention, when I'm just getting my thoughts out. When I reread some of those, I'm like, oh wow, this was terrible. But my message is very articulate.
Ah,
And my messages reached a lot of people that I didn't realize would even be touched or care about this story or what was going on. And I wasn't really sharing it for anyone other than to like manage the amount of time of having to update people on things. And but I was very honest and open and vulnerable. And so I actually am in the process of writing my book on losing John and the lessons I learned from that process. And everyone says F cancer, and I did too for a while. But I also came across, because I printed all of my social media account out, and I came across the 10 lessons that cancer taught me. And when I read those, I thought, I've really learned some really beautiful things here, and I really have learned them. And I want to share them with whoever may be going through this. My husband died of metastatic prostate cancer at 54.
wow.
Way too
Way too
young.
young.
We should have caught it early.
Way too young.
Yeah, we should have caught it early. We caught it way too late. It was already in his bones. There was no treatment available. He died 22 months later. My husband and I, because we both went to impact training, we were both um, really invested in our relationship, and we didn't always have a healthy relationship, but we worked through some really amazing trials and went, raised a family, and then we're left with this
Yeah.
situation. And in it, we learned so many beautiful lessons, and I feel I am okay in life. I'm taken care of in life. So I'm very comfortable where I'm at. But what I want is to be able to spare anyone any unnecessary pain, and also be able to share with them that there are some beautiful lessons. And I think that that's my biggest takeaway, Mary, in self-awareness and self-development, and the coaching I've had, in the trainings I've done, in all of it. At the end of the day, this life is about our journeys and the stories we tell ourselves. And we can choose to stay the victim of our stories, or we can become the heroine. And that's all dependent on us.
Michelle, thank you so much for being with us today. You are a wealth of knowledge, and you're going to bless so many lives as you help
Thank you.
others reveal the greatness within themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all of the work that you are doing as well. And I want to say it is interesting. I had you on my show, and I had you on my show for what I thought were different reasons. But when I heard the story of you mounting the summit, it's so perfect. My logo is a mountain climber, with a rope around the mountain, mounting that summit. And it's so interesting because I met you kind of through politics, through a mutual friend, but then I ended up going to some dinner things with you during COVID. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. And your little tribe is such an interesting, beautiful group of women that I really admire. And I'm working on really finding my little tribe in my little northern area of the state. But I love being associated with you and with Katie and all of them. Tiffany, I've been to Tiffany's trainings as well. You have amazing, beautiful, incredible women in your circle, and I really admire you. So I'm honored that you would think of and have me on. So thank you so much.
Right back at you, Michelle. Until next time, when we learn more about crafting our meaningful life. Namaste.
Listen to the full podcast today and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Crafting a Meaningful Life with Mary Crafts.